I have exactly what you need.
Is the MMORPG genre dying? That's what we're going to talk about next on the first episode of the Fires of Heaven podcast. So what the hell is the Fires of Heaven podcast? We're going to talk about the games, the players, the trolls, and the community. This is Chris Kane, and on this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the site known as Fires of Heaven. From my point of view, what is it? How long has it been around? What kind of degenerate people visit the site, and why should you care? And we've also got an interview with Lightning Lord Rule, administrator on firesofheaven.org. In the beginning, Fires of Heaven was a message board for a guild from EverQuest 1. It was created to allow people in the guild to socialize and talk about the game. It was an extension of the community that developed within the game. The guild was ruled over by an admittedly effective hard-ass named Führer Plane Defiler, who was also known as Alex Frasiabi, who later went on to work at Blizzard Entertainment and, if I'm not mistaken, is the current creative director of World of Warcraft. So, pretty good resume. So many game developers have visited the site and either have found it an invaluable place for truthful, overly truthful, and honest feedback about their game, that they stay and engage the hardcore players on the site, or they've been trolled to hell and back and end up vanishing entirely. But with 20 years of changes on the site, the re-rolled retcon and all of that, it still remains a community of the most informed and dedicated gamers around. The guys and gal or two have been at the forefront of analyzing and critiquing and digesting games and game development since the late 90s. There's not much that gets by them. I mean, they sleuth and investigate rumors about loved or hated games. It's a fundamental reason why I love the site. If there's information that exists out there on the net about a game, I'll find it on Fires of Heaven. Even dirt that I won't find on popular gaming news sites. That's why I've been going there for 20 years. All right, enough of that. What are we going to talk about that's worth listening to me yammer on and on about for the next 10 minutes? Ever since I started playing games online, I've had this long and deep desire to be immersed. Not really role play, per se, but to fall in love with a story or character or world in a game. It's the main reason why a great game is like a great book or a great movie to me. Back in the day, I played pen and paper role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons with my friends, and it was amazing. It was an outlet for youthful frustration and curiosity, where I could be the hero or the villain, or more to the point, a douchey bastard if I really wanted to. But even then, it was allowing me to learn and practice socializing with people. But D&D didn't really invade my soul until I became a dungeon master for the first time. When I realized that I could build the world the way that I saw it in my mind, I was ecstatic. I was elated. I was so giddy. It was palpable. Not only did this pacify a kind of psychological narcissism, since I was the controller and creator of the world, it was something that my friends wanted. They wanted a world they could explore together, a world where seemingly anything was possible. All right, fast forward from the late 80s to 1999. Games like EverQuest and Ultima Online were captivating players all over the world, and I was one of them. I mean, they hooked me in with immersion and a pen and paper type rule set. These types of games have only gotten more popular over the last 20 years, though the rule sets have definitely changed, more action-oriented. But lately, maybe within the past 3 to 5 years, have those same addicted players started crying out for something to scratch an itch that has been building up slowly. I felt it too. Every game I picked up didn't pull me in the same way those early games did, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, that is until very recently. MMOs, and more specifically, MMORPGs, exists in their present state for many, many, many reasons. But I think the number one reason is that they exist like this because that's where the money is for game developers. Accessibility, ease of entry, inclusion. These are all words that simply mean more money for a developer. The more people that play their game, the more money they can make. It's obvious. It doesn't matter if it's a subscription-based or microtransaction-based. More people equals more money. And really, in order to understand why I think the MMORPG genre is suffering, we have to look at the impetus or the catalyst as to why these games are the way they are these days. Why the hardcore players seem to be searching for something that they can't quite define or describe. But even more importantly, how the early adopters and the hardcore players of games today are the true influencers. And lately, that seems to be indicative of a game's presumed financial success. There are trends in any game genre: first-person shooters, simulations, battle royale, and on and on and on. There will always be the flavor of the month. But what's missing from the current batch of popular games? All right, I'll just say it. Community. It may sound cliche these days, but building a relationship with another human being through an online game is still incredibly difficult. But for the typical introverted gamer, it's easier than forming one with a real human, but that's a whole other episode. I think empathy is not conducive to escapism, and most people play games to escape, but I know that's not the only reason. If a game offers you a choice of being kind and considerate and empathetic over being a prick and satiating your base instincts, the majority of people will choose the latter, due mostly to what I think is a fear of their inner self, but I digress. Role-playing games have a built-in mechanism for allowing people to be the person they want to be. Depending on the rule set or the dungeon master, back in the day, you might even be able to get away with being a douche. But a great game encourages cooperation and induces empathy, either by its difficulty or its own limitations. So what do we have in the modern crop of MMORPGs? They're basically press button, get reward. Human interaction in games these days is minimal to non-existent, and watching your favorite streamer on Twitch doesn't count. And what I mean by human interaction isn't what we have now, where we see another human player as a target, or worse, a threat. I mean, having to engage another human, either by speaking to them in voice chat or typing to them and awaiting their response. Now, I'm not saying games that pit people against each other don't have their place, but rather the games that put real emotion and human empathy and communication at the forefront tend to last much longer and build a solid reputation from the early adopters and the hardcore players. Those are the people that drive the eventual success. Okay, I've gone way down a rabbit hole here that doesn't have an easy answer. I think I'll end the thought with this. The more an MMORPG limits worthwhile human interactions, like talking, chatting, exploring, achieving together, the more it's likely to lose its intended base more quickly, or they devolve into a haven for douchebags. And conversely, the more an MMORPG can include the player base in those same activities, the more likely it's to have a longer life with dedicated fans that will rally other people to play it. So does the next crop of MMORPGs share anything in common? Well, it looks like some of them realize that slowing things down for people to engage with one another is something that's been lost and worthwhile to do again. Whether you're talking about WoW's Dungeon Finder, which basically allows you to never have to talk to another person and still accomplish your goals, or some other mechanic which takes out the human interaction, which to me is like playing a single-player game, so why even bother playing a massively multiplayer game? Now, some games seem to be acknowledging this trend of lacking community motivators, and they're getting some attention, like WoW Classic, Project Gorgon, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, and many more. But the final question is this: will any of these new games be able to pull those hardcore players back, and will they stay? Next up, we've got an interview with admin on the Fires of Heaven site, Lightning Lord Rule. All right, the first and most important question, at least that I usually ask people when they message me on Discord, is how long have you been part of the forums, the Fires of Heaven forums?
So I joined the forums about 2005, I believe, which is when it was opened up for non-members. Groupie is not really the right word, but kind of checking things out before that. And since I saw registration was open, I registered about that time, and I was into World of Warcraft at the time. I was doing the Uber Guild thing, and so on the server that I was on.
Groupie is definitely the right word because I think that's where I got it too. Same exact thing. Well, it started with EverQuest for me, but Groupie's definitely the right word.
Yeah, it was only tangentially around during EverQuest. I was mostly doing FPS gaming during that time. I was big into Battlefield 1942, which I was playing competitively.
Oh, love it.
Also, before that, Return of Castle Wolfenstein.
Is it me, or has the Battlefield series just gone downhill ever since Bad Company 2?
I was not a fan actually of Battlefield 2. Yeah, it's kind of gone off a cliff now, from what I can see.
Man, I was excited for 5, and I just couldn't get in. I mean, I played it for a while, but I just couldn't get into it. I don't know what
I was super
is
excited
missing.
for 5 until I saw what they did with it, and then I was like, well, so much for that.
All right, so tell me, going back to the forums, because I can talk about Battlefield all day. Tell me, how did it come to pass, administrator on the forums? I mean, how'd you score the gig? If there's a scoop, let me know.
There's not much to be said that wasn't been said on the forums itself. It happened pretty much organically. I'd never really thought about it up until I ran for operator.
So right place, right time. Okay, I get it.
I was in the same group as Raysar and Tuco and Noodleface and Ionis, however you say it, who pulled the famous disappearing act for his term.
Oh yes.
Months after that, I was disappointed he didn't show up on the day of the next election. So hey, what did I miss, or something like that. But I guess it was legit instead of an actual joke, like a Dumb and Dumber 2 joke, basically.
That kind of segues perfectly into my next question. I'm trying to think of what would I want to know? What would people want to know if they were listening to this? Is there any, or are there any drama or trolls or stories that stand out as epic for you from the forums specifically? Either, and you don't have to mention names, but there's so many different things to point out, but are there anything that stands out when I say what's an epic troll or a story from the forums that jumps out at you?
You mean during my term as moderator / administrator?
No, it doesn't have. It can be any time that you just found so entertaining that you just kept on coming back.
Probably the ones that stand out is the stuff with Tyan, even though for its badness and the horrible effect it had on the forums, and then what could be described as nothing less than a comeuppance last Mother's Day regarding the famous Swamp Donkey incident. But it had to be those, and I say that as somebody who doesn't like him at all. There's nothing good about him as far as I can tell. The things that he stands for, I stand for almost the complete opposite. As long as I have a say in it, he's not going to be around. The rest of the moderation teams that I've been around have agreed with me. Because that led to the migration away from the original forums. And it doesn't get much bigger than that, in my opinion.
That is a good one. I wish I had a little more inside information, but we don't have to go into details. Following that same line of thought, as far as drama and trolls, because they're addicting. At least from my point of view, it's addicting to watch it. But from their point of view, if I was going to be one and I wanted to know what to avoid, what do I have to do to make it the fastest way that I can get banned from the forums? What do I have to do? Yep.
Anything to do with doxing. That's a real hard line, and moderators and myself is going to take a hard line on that. That's due to the incident, that happened with Old Scratch here a year and a half ago now. And, that came close to really doing a lot of damage. So people are really sensitive to that for good reason. Due to the nature of the free speech rules we have on the forums, that's to me, that's the most sacred rule we have is privacy. If you want it to be kept, if you want to put the information out there yourself, as Sweeney has done, that's fine. But if you even hint at or threaten something like that, that's the quick ticket to Bantown.
So for people that don't know specifically what you're referring to, doxing is basically a practice of finding out personal information about somebody. Right. Okay, good. Just so people know.
Finding real life information about somebody that you then tie to their forum account.
Yeah, okay, that's definitely a good answer. Fastest way to get banned. Don't dox the trolls. Okay.
We're pretty lenient. I mean, I let a lot of stuff go. Not only other forums, but past administrations have cracked down on. And I try to keep a little distanced, I guess. And so I try to keep it as fair as I can and as unbiased as I can.
Yeah, and I can say just on a personal level, from being on the forums for 20 years now, almost 20 years. There's been just waves of good and bad, and over the last, I'd say, maybe less than a year, I've noticed it being more consistent. And besides, you can just help people understand, use an ignore function, use a mute function. God, I've added so many people lately to my own personal ignore list, but all right, that's a totally other story for a different day.
Well, I take that as a compliment, because since the last year or so, it's basically the time that I've been basically fully in charge of what's been going on as far as day to day. So
good, because it's noticeable. So whatever's happening, just keep doing it, and it seems to be working. I mean, from my net nerd kind of a point of view. So my next question, we're going to kind of shift. Games. Are you going to be playing WoW Classic?
Possibly. I'm still kind of on the fence on that one. So the thing with WoW Classic is they're doing it exactly like they did back in the day, and I kind of feel like I've almost done what there is to do in that. At the same time, it's like, there's going to be, a lot of people coming back for it, and there's going to be, a lot of kind of craziness going on. I mean, back then I was really focused on, world first and, trying to be up there, top 10 in the world and this kind of thing. And now it's like, who cares? I've done that. So this time would be more personal. And that's kind of what I'm trying to construct on the forum is nobody has the time and the effort anymore. I mean, everybody's got kids, jobs, this kind of thing that they didn't have 15 years ago. And so you're not going to be in the market for world first. You're going to be in the market for personal gaming. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it's more like, okay, I know these people and I want to mess with them or I want to play with them. I don't want to compete with random people that I don't even know just for fortune and glory. It's fortune and glory, but it's more localized, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
That's kind of what I'm trying to facilitate on the forums with the guild sections. I'm getting a little pushback just because it's kind of like trying to get a pizza order for 10 different people. You're never going to have the right thing. Somebody wants anchovies, somebody wants pineapple, somebody wants, goat. I mean, who knows? So we're kind of in that boat right now, but I think I can herd these cats into the right place. We'll see.
Your answer basically crystallized exactly the same thing that I'm going through. Exactly the same thing.
Right.
I did it all before. I have no interest in doing it all over again in the same way. So I'm trying to find that thread, that reason to play it. Maybe a new class or just, and this is so gay, maybe even a role-playing server, try to experience the game from a different point of view. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean, man.
To me, the absolute best part of Vanilla WoW was not the initial AV, but like the second patch or so. And we had, our guild at the time had some of the best battles with the equivalent Horde side guild, because I was Lions. That was some of the best there ever was, because you could not do anything unless you were coordinated in that Alterac Valley. Coming out on top after, a couple hours, and especially equivalent, pickup group experience of you couldn't do anything with Alterac Valley, some of the original iterations. The difference being such night and day, and the fact that you could get something done the way I'm sure that Blizzard meant it to be done. And I'd like to recreate something like that again with the guild on guild thing, but the problem with that is they don't have the original version of Alterac Valley and WoW Classic, which I consider a gigantic oversight.
Agreed.
I'm sure I'm maybe in the minority there, so we'll see. I don't think most of the guys that are to experience that agree with me.
I was never a huge PvPer, but Alterac Valley It's its own. It's like its own goddamn game. It was an amazing experience. I don't know how else. Yeah, you know what I mean. You don't know how else to describe the PvP. What you had to do. It was like a whole new way of experiencing a multiplayer game. It just, it was good. Yeah, hopefully it comes in there.
And the fact that they gutted it so soon, I have to believe the whole thing was on accident and they had no idea what they had.
Yeah, right. That's probably pretty true. All right, I got to ask a couple more questions. We're gonna wrap it up. I don't want to go too long. So, any plans to add any features to the forums or to Discord, like integrations, bots, a different theme that you can choose from on the forums? Not that I want that, but you have any plans, any wish list items that you want to see for the forums? Or hell, even anything in your mind that you'd like to see the forums turn into or add?
So I've added so many things over the course of my tenure that I'm a little scared of it. So I really had to be careful about all the changes I made. With the changes regarding reactions and donations and the monetary system. That's basically all my brainchild. For better or worse. And so I'm a little sensitive about doing too much. But as far as themes, that's a real easy thing to implement. And I don't have the CSS knowledge to be able to go about it. But I'm always looking for new things that I think would be fun to add. I consider the donation campaign recently to be extremely successful. And, for at least for the next year, we've got, a decent amount of funds to buy add-ons or work done or something like that, which I would like to do if I get some good ideas with that. But I'm kind of in the mode right now to ensure the longevity of the forums, which to me, there's two main things that could kill us, so to speak. And that's which I've taken care of with donations and apathy, which means, a slow attrition of membership over time. And so the next thing I'm trying to implement, and I'm in the process of doing that, is, various methods for membership drives. So, you got to be kind of careful with that as far as getting too many people and getting the word out due to the nature of our forums. But that's the main thing. And it's just, figuring out the right way to get steady membership in, and WoW Classic is going to be a big part of that, I think, because the amount of enthusiasm I see out there for that, and just the sheer numbers. I mean, they've hardly promoted it, and they're just kind of back. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're doing WoW Classic, and they got 1 million people they think are going to show up to that, which I don't even think they have 1 million people doing Azeroth right now, because right now we've got about 1,300 average daily visitors, which are members. And if we could get, higher than that and keep going and just kind of get a steady rise in that number and integrate them into the community. And, that's how you keep this thing going. And that's my main goal for the next, few months at least. And then probably I'll see the next shiny object and try to add that, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they all seem to be shiny objects at this point. Every time I'll visit a forum.
I really have to check myself on all that kind of things. And that's kind of all that process until you hit upon something that's, really pretty good. So, but I'm heartened when I look around at some of the other gaming forums like NeoGAF, these other places, and it seems like we've got a lot more features as far as, movies integration and notification systems and money system and the reaction system, medal system.
The reaction system is pretty good.
I'm really proud of it. So not to give away tech secrets, but what it is, it's to certain behavior, but it's more than that. And how it's more than that is that each medal has a post linked to it. And I've, set it down for the people that hand out medals to be sure to link to a post or something in each medal. You can't just say something and let it be it. And so what that does over time is that's basically like a greatest hits. So you go to some particular poster's medals page and you say, okay, they got a medal for this, and then you use, oh, this is cool. I don't remember this from 4 years ago. And you go look it up and say, oh, this person did this, and it's to integrate into a wiki, essentially. Now, the way it's been implemented is not perfect, but that's the idea. And I'm 100% certain that the add-on maker had none of that in mind when they did the add-on. And I'd like to make some changes to, make it a little better and a little more intuitive, but that's the idea.
It's one of those features that I've noticed, and I keep noticing more and more. Like, it's something that I'll see somebody with it, and I'm checking it out. So it seems to be organically, it's definitely going to be something that people are going to utilize because, well, shit, if I'm using it, that means people who are way more savvy with this kind of stuff are definitely going to be looking at this, especially because it feeds people's ego, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
If it feeds the ego, it's going to be a good thing for the forums. Yeah, definitely. It's appealing to that achievement hunter in all of us.
Exactly.
All right, so I got to ask a couple more questions, and then we'll get out. We'll be done. So I got to ask, what's the thing about the forums that pisses you off personally the most? And it could be either from an admin point of view or, hell shit, even from a user point of view. What pisses you off most about the Fires of Heaven forums?
That's a good question. Generally, I'm pretty laid back when it comes to the forum itself. Maybe I'll get frustrated when people don't react how I would like them to. On a individual, but it's usually on an individual basis, and here's an easy one. When I write something down, pretty good detail, and then people come back and ask the same thing, 5 posts later. I'm like, yes. I just wrote it down, it's right there. Are you ESL? It's right there. I don't see why I gotta explain it. And then it'll happen again, and then then you get to the trolls. Oh, what was this again? And there's definitely the temptation to, abuse your power if you're not careful.
So you do realize after saying that, just answered. Now, when I make this, I'm going to leave that in there, and then that's just going to happen to anything that you post now. So, all right, you just welcomed all the trolls.
They already do it, so it's kind of
Oh, okay. Last question. Promise, unless something else pops up. I've been a part of the forums for, I can't believe it's been almost 20 years. I've been going there to get information, to get, elite strats. Oh my God. Elite strats from games for a long, long time. And it's been a place to commiserate. It's been a place to bitch. It's been a place to troll. It's been a place to see drama. I mean, one of my favorite stories has been the Kurt Schilling 38 Studios debacle, only because it has a very regional, it just has a regional thing for me because I live in the state of Rhode Island. I'm just curious, what do you like best about the forums?
Over the course of the life of the forums, I've always viewed it as like a one-stop shopping. Like if I want to learn how to build a computer, it's there on FoH. There's somebody with a thread about, this particular keyboard and this particular motherboard and this particular processor, and you put this together and this one's great and this one sucks. It's good for that. It's good for entertainment. You're listening to people that have similar opinions, similar background. We're all kind of, roughly the same age within 10, 15 years. And people with that kind of knowledge with movies, TV, books, the whole deal. When it comes to games, you're going to get real opinions. You're not going to get shilling. You're not going to get advertising. The opinion of, 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds. I mean, you're not, it's going to be filtered to the people that you want to know about. To me, that's always been the greatest advantage, and combined with this iteration especially, not a little bit less so in the past, but the ability to speak your mind and not have to worry about whoever coming after you for, popping off because you were pissed off about something this particular day about, something somebody did. You can vent. It's a place you can do that. And so when you combine all of that, that's a tough thing to replace from anywhere. And especially when you've built up, like you say, 20 years of history from, being around the same people. So to me, that's the best thing. As far as longevity, as far as the plan forward, I don't, like a 5-year plan or something like that. But I can see myself doing this for quite a while because there's nothing really that exasperates me. And as long as I can, master the technical aspects, I'm self-taught when it comes to everything computers. I've never went to classes or schools or anything like that. And, can you Google it? Can you figure it out? I'm pretty much self-taught with a lot of things. So if I can keep that up, and if I can't, I can find somebody who knows more than I can and knows more than I do and can figure that technical aspect out, and running the day-to-day thing, I pretty much got a handle on, I think. So I can see myself doing this a while.
So after this podcast launches and the forums explode and we get 10,000 average daily visits, what are you going to do then?
Sit back and dive into my money bin.
Okay, good. Oh, wait, I completely forgot about the best question. I'm going to lead with this next time I do an interview. Lightning Lord Rule. Where does the name come from? Why that name?
Okay. So a long time ago, I used to go by the handle Rule of Wrist, which is a reference from the Boondock Saints, which is from the very beginning. They're talking about the scene where the big girl comes up to the two kids, and And it's like, so they're trying to explain something to her, and it says, so the rule of thumb with this is like, she stops and it's like, rule of thumb, do you know that that's what the where that comes from? And they're like, no. The rule of thumb meant you could beat the hell out of your wife as long as you hit her with a stick that was no bigger than your thumb. And he's like, well, for somebody like you, it should have been a rule of wrist now, shouldn't it?
Yes, classic.
Yeah. And so that got shortened to rule because, you're talking to people over, voice chat, and, they don't want to say the whole thing. And then when the whole Game of Thrones thing started hitting about, 2010, 2011, people were doing all, the surnames and all that kind of stuff. And so I picked Lightning Lord after Sir Beric Dondarrion. I've always had a thing with lightning. And it just kind of stuck. And now if I were to change it back, it'd just be weird.
All right, that works. That's Jesus. It's better than mine. Jeez, that's awesome. All right, so that's it. Done. Yeah, I appreciate you spending the time, dude. We may do this again. Who knows?
Okay.
All right, so we just had an interview with Lightning Lord Rule, administrator of the firesofheaven.org forums. We're definitely going to be interviewing a few more personalities and a few more people from the site. So let's see what happens as we do a few more of these. We'll definitely find some of those personalities and ask them some questions. And maybe the listeners can ask some questions, and we'll see if we can get some answers from some of the people behind the scenes at firesofheaven.org. All right, so moving on. So what's next for the podcast? If you've got an idea about what we can do on the next podcast, leave a comment and let us know what you'd like to hear about, or if you want to listen to me ramble on and on again,